So Eliana, can we have a roll call, please?
McBride.
Here.
Trustee Marquez.
Here.
Trustee Diaz-Silca. Vice President McAvoy.
Present.
President Lawson.
I'm here. So thank you. Welcome everyone to the August 26th board meeting. After I finish this, I'll put some links in the chat box for the agenda and speakers cards, and I'll also post information for Spanish translation. If you'd like to speak to the board, please fill out the Google Doc and make sure you include your name so that we know who to unmute when the time comes. If the item you wish to address is not on the agenda, you'll be called on during oral communication. And due to the Brown Act, the board is allowed to hear your comments, but we cannot have a discussion on it. If the item you wish to address is on the agenda, you'll be called on when that item is being addressed. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. And as a reminder that because we're meeting via teleconference, all votes will be by roll call. Do we have any changes to the agenda? I was just curious, I don't know if the bond action items can move to consent or if there's a reason that 7.1 and 7.2 are on action.
So I was just leaving them there just because of the magnitude of the dollars.
Okay.
But I'm fine if you want to move it to consent.
It's up to the other board members.
I'm fine moving them to consent.
I'm fine too.
Okay, so let's go ahead and move 7.1 and 7.2 to consent items. If there's no other changes, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Dennis? Is there a second?
Second.
Cecilia?
Second.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee McBride.
Aye.
Trustee Marquez.
Aye.
Trustee Diaz-Silca. Vice President McAvoy.
Aye.
President Lawson.
Aye. I still need to get those links in the chat, sorry. At this point, we don't have any items on oral communication. Hang on just a second. I'm gonna post it one more time for now. The other cards that we have are for the item 8.1. So we can move on to the bond program consent items, including 7.1 and 7.2. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Elisa?
Yeah.
Second.
Cecilia, second. And a roll call vote, please.
McBride.
Aye.
Trustee Marquez.
Aye.
Trustee Diaz-Silca. Vice President McAvoy.
Aye.
President Lawson.
Aye. Thanks. Just for the panelists, it sounds like we're getting an echo. If you have more than one device that you're logged into, can you make sure one of them is on mute so that we're not getting that feedback? Moving on to item 8.1.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, all board members and those members of the public that are with us tonight, and some of our staff members that are here also. This is day 6 that we've been in school. Of course, there's been 4 days of instruction led by our classroom teachers, and then we've had 2 preparation days so far. So before we start, I want to thank everyone, all the teachers, all the office staff, our custodians, our CNS help, our maintenance department workers, and everyone who's been working in the district office, to just thank them for a job well done and getting started this school year with distance learning. As I said previously and many, many times, that this is not our normal. We are very accustomed to being person to person, looking at those shiny little faces and medium-sized faces coming to us every fall, and really looking forward to having a great year of instruction, and also having, a great year of having fun, making learning fun for our students. But this is a whole different ball game. So thank all the staff, the teachers, everyone, parents also, for your patience. We know it's been a little rocky. We are doing our best, and I believe within the next, within a week, we will be great. tonight, before we start with an overview of where we are because of COVID-19, I want to give you a little overview of what's going to take place. So Liz Wolf is going to definitely go over the parent guide to distance learning. We did have a webinar on Monday, and she'll talk a little bit about that. I also want to move on to technology and have Kyle give us an update in regard to Chromebooks and hotspots and also Zoom. And thank you, Janet, for your work on getting Zoom our way as quickly as it could get here. And then Pati Ortiz is going to talk a little bit about childcare and where we are in that respect, along with working with our partners and outside entities that want to work with the Redwood City School District. And then I have Wendy Kelly, who's going to do an overview of district office, our hours, and our communication and how to get a hold of people at the district office when there are concerns with technology, when there are concerns with items that parents are wondering about and they can't get a hold of anyone. She is going to address those concerns about messaging, what numbers to call, and so forth, because the district office is now going to move in a different direction and its hours will change along with its work days. I would like to talk a little bit about additional counseling that I'm thinking about. I know we received an email from one parent this afternoon, and I did not respond to that parent at this point in time because I wanted to talk to the board about my plans on moving forward. I have involved Andrea Guerin in getting me some additional information so she could assist me with this. And then the last piece that I would like to talk about is our protocols and our policy that we have in place for when there are concerns that arise at the school site, the manner in which we go about to definitely make sure that our issues or our concerns are heard, and then what process we follow if I, as a parent, feel that the response was not what I was hoping for, or maybe I would like a different response to go in a different manner. So how do I do that? And so I'd like to take a moment to go through that process with all of us. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to start with Liz Wolf, and she is going to give the overview of the parent guide that we did on Monday. Yeah.
Monday. Seems like a long time ago, but it was Monday.
It does.
All right, I'm going to share my screen here. So, good evening, Board President Lawson, members of the board, Dr. Baker, and a distinguished panel and attendees. I do want to talk a little bit about the webinar that we held on Monday, as well as the document itself and what's inside that. And I'd be happy to put the link into the chat as well if other people haven't found it yet. We have a copy in English and a copy in Spanish. I'm also going to add a couple other pieces of information about what's coming up in terms of other components that we'll be adding to distance learning beyond what happened in the webinar and beyond our handbook, but the things that we think when I talked to Dr. Baker today that it's important for you to be aware of. So what is that?
That's something that we talked about.
I know, but it's like a mess. Let me get that.
Which we'll be addressing a little later.
Okay, let me try to go back there. Well, I'm just going to skip up here. Actually, I can't. Let me see what, and I'm going to stop sharing and see what happened with that slide. Talk amongst yourselves.
Would you like me to go on to Kyle?
Why don't you? Why don't you? Because for some reason the slides all converged into one. So let me go back and I'll fix that, and then I'll come back. Thank you. Sorry.
So Kyle.
And, Dr. Baker, it looks like maybe Pati Ortiz is in the audience also.
Oh, perfect. That's great. So if we could have Pati Ortiz as a panelist, because we're going to get to childcare a little bit later in this presentation. But Kyle, do you mind starting with the technology piece, please?
Sure.
And I have a couple questions that I'm going to bring to your attention that were just brought up in the principals meeting.
Okay. Okay. So we started when we were in shelter in place, where we issued about 2,900 devices out to Redwood City School District students. We have, through the efforts towards the end of the year and with the 8th graders, and then at the end of the summer, on August 5th through 7th, we recovered all of those devices with the exception of about 400 of those. So we have been able to take those devices and redeploy those devices. We prepared, and mostly this was because we had thought of this ahead of time. We knew that we had about 2,700 Chromebooks that were going to age out at the end of the 2021 school year. And so we encouraged principals to replace half of the number that they had on their site this year, and then replace the other half next year. Because they did that, we had about 1,500 new Chromebooks in the district that we were able to deploy to students. We have prepared and deployed about another 400 new iPads, and I'll talk about iPads more in just a little bit. Those devices that are aging out, those 2,500 Chromebooks that are aging out, they're Dell 3120 models. One of the issues that we have had with some of the Chromebooks that we're hearing back from principals and students is that they're having some video cutout issues, and some of our older Chromebooks, some of them only have 2 gigs of RAM or working memory. Some have 4 gigs of RAM, but almost all of our Chromebooks that we've purchased in the last 2.5 years have 8 gigs of RAM. And those Chromebooks seem to be working just fine with what our students and our teachers are asking students to do with those Chromebooks. Over the first 2 days of the week when we started school, so on August 17th and 18th, the tech crew worked the week before and over that weekend, and we had prepared 7,000 devices. So we had a device for each and every student that was labeled with their name, their Google account, and their password on the device. So when they arrived at the school on the 17th and 18th, the school just needed to get their name, pull out the device, hand the device to the student. So we created a process that was as touchless as we could, and we were able to get students through that process pretty quickly. We've also received and prepared just this last weekend about 1,000 hotspots, and then we've been able to take about 350 of the hotspots that we had last year, bring them in, audit them, and then recirculate them. We have about another 150 that we can put into service, but we've been waiting. We had to buy new charging blocks and cables for them, which came in today. So over the past week or so, we've distributed about 600 hotspots to students, and we have more that will follow. Over the summer, we also had a lot of construction projects that went on, mostly at Adelante Selby and at Roosevelt, where we've now been able to go back in and reconnect access points, phones, etc. in those classrooms. We are expecting another 100 Chromebooks that were ordered late in the process, so that those will go to Kennedy and Henry Ford. And then the large order of iPads that we put in the middle of July just arrived on Monday, and that's 600 iPads. So we're going to start the process of getting all of those configured and prepared, and then getting those out to students. We're currently providing tech support and exchanges at the DO Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. As John mentioned, we received the licensing for Zoom on Friday evening. We got the specialized address for our Redwood City School District domain was approved yesterday. And then we're right now in the process of loading students and staff into Zoom, and then we will prepare to roll out in the next few days. Also, as been mentioned here, we also found out that the County Board of Supervisors approved additional funding to increase the number of public Wi-Fi locations in Redwood City in 3 very specific geographic areas. And then we're also working on a partnership with the Redwood City Public Library. Right now, all of our newer Chromebooks have the Libby app, which allows students to check out books from the general library collection. They also have the RB Digital app, which allows them to check out periodicals. And then we're also working with the Redwood City Public Library to create a digital library card so that we can now get library cards in the hands of students who don't have them. We put forth an effort last year to get more students library cards, and we got about 1,000, but we still have a long way to go. And then in reference, John had mentioned it in his piece, where we do have a tech support form where families can fill out the form, and then we'll call them back either to try to diagnose and correct the problem over the phone so that we can maintain social distancing, or we can set up an appointment for them to come to the district office where we can exchange their device. And then we also have a specific email address where families can request a hotspot, and then we're responding to those calls as we get them. Our return time is right now between 24 to 36 hours on those. So that's just kind of a real quick snapshot of everything that's going on. There's just a lot of things going on. But if there's any questions that anybody has, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
And before you ask him any questions, at the principals meeting today, there was discussion in regard to the Chromebooks and to the hotspots. And as many of you already know in our individual meetings that we have every week, this past weekend, we had hotspots that were given away at 2 school sites. We used Hoover and we used McKinley. And when we looked at the information that we received from parents, I kind of really freaked out because it was more hotspots needed than what we had, the 1,000 that we had. So as you all know, I went through the process first of those parents who did not have Wi-Fi that answered on the back to school forms that they're completing out that they have no Wi-Fi. As we found out, as we were passing out the hotspots on Saturday, many parents said to me, I don't have Wi-Fi, but they were not on the list. So I said, there's something incorrect here. So let's talk about it. And they said, I don't have Wi-Fi. When I said I have Wi-Fi, it means that I'm using my phone. So they're using the phone as the Wi-Fi to have their child connect. I go, that does not mean you have Wi-Fi at home. So I went through that explanation. And so what I told parents was, please give us some time. This was early in the morning. We started at 8:30. And so this was early in the morning. I said, give me until, I was saying around 12 o'clock. I'll know how many hotspots are left. Those that are not picked up will call you up right away and you come back. Well, to my surprise and to Wendy's surprise, because Wendy was at MIT with staff, I was at Hoover, and we're communicating back and forth. And I go, and we're heavily staffed, which was great because I was expecting all these people and lines of cars, and it wasn't happening. So around, I want to say 10:45, 11 o'clock, I just decided, okay, we need to call all these people back. We're telling them, come back and get the hotspot, even though you marked that you had it, but you really didn't have it. And then I also had parents where and this is something we need to think about next year when we're passing out anything, is that parents who are divorced and parents who have shared custody. This one parent that I spoke to, she goes, I'm fine with Wi-Fi at my home. I don't need a hotspot. I work from home. I have great service, blah, blah, blah. But when my child goes with his father, there is no Wi-Fi. So I need one for my child when he's with his dad. And I go, okay. So again, I'll give you a call depending on how many hotspots are left over. And so we did. We called her and she said, come back. And she was so grateful. So the other piece that we learned and that we continue to learn at today's principals meeting, as you know, you have several students on one hotspot. And if there are 2, 3, even though Kyle did explain to us, they are set for at least 4, I believe 4 students that could be on a hotspot. It's still sometimes, it's not sufficient enough. So what we are doing right now and what I've asked principals to do is to really check with their families, because they know their families a lot better than me, start to go out again with another questionnaire to see what is needed. They are going to tell me exactly how many additional hotspots they need because of the amount of students that are in their household. So one principal, I've got them back. So that was already, hers are already in, so I'll give them to Kyle tomorrow morning and let him know. But that's one of the issues. Another issue, as Kyle pointed out, is that we have these older Chromebooks that have the 2 GB, correct, Kyle?
Yeah. Some with 2, some with 4, but yeah, a lot of them with 2, yeah.
But we really need to have the 8, the one with the 8 GB. So is that true, Kyle?
Correct. That's what we
Stop me if I'm wrong, because you and I've had this conversation. I have notes, but you know, you're the techie and I'm not.
So that's true. So every Chromebook that we've purchased since December 2018 has 8 GB of RAM in it.
Okay.
Everything before that is either 2 or 4. And some of the board members may remember that the district had some issues using the Amplify curriculum. And what we found was that when we used Chromebooks that had additional RAM in them, the issues with Amplify went away. And so that was our test that we used to know that having more RAM on the device, especially with applications that had heavy video content, we were far better off.
So what I've asked Kyle to do is to inventory those old 2 GB, and they can be as spares or whatever, but I want to order 8 GB. And the reason why I'm saying this is because I have the federal dollars from the CARES Act that I can do this, so that every child in our system will have the 8 GB. And so that will be one less issue that parents will have when they're at home distance learning with their child. That, and then also the additional hotspots that we will give out. Plus, there's one other piece. We have our instructional assistants who are also delivering what their teacher has asked them to do with students in their classroom, and many of them do not have the proper Wi-Fi, so they are going to need a hotspot also. Then it could be also some of our teachers may need to have additional Wi-Fi support, and so they will need a hotspot. So why I'm bringing this to your attention is because what is going to occur, and Priscilla made a great chart for me on what the guidelines are on how to spend those dollars. And one of the I had it pulled up for the principals today and I read it, but I'm on 2 different devices now. And so I'm not going to search for it. But one of the criteria is definitely technology to support students, technology to support staff. It says teachers, but I'm saying staff. So under those guidelines, I want to spend the dollars in that fashion. I know, as Kyle pointed out to me earlier, and as the state superintendent, Tony Thurman, sent out a letter to all SUPs saying, we understand, about the majority of you are doing distance learning. We have these outside entities that'll help you with, ordering your hotspots, ordering your Chromebooks, but the wait is 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. Although Kyle found someone for us that'll be less time. So what I am going to do is, as soon as he gets the numbers in place, is to move forward with the ordering of these 8 GB Chromebooks. And then we are also looking at the additional ordering of hotspots, so that we can make sure that our children are not kicked off because so many are using it in one household. And also if they're using the hotspot plus the parents are using their own Wi-Fi, there seems to be an issue with that too. So hopefully this will alleviate that. The other thing that I also wanted to bring to your attention, and that Wendy is going to work on this, is that sometimes our parents have a difficult time getting to the district office to pick up something or to get something repaired. Our bus drivers can now, who are still working, but we don't have, the buses are not running. So our bus drivers are doing different tasks. So one of the tasks that they can help us with is to go to a house and deliver a Chromebook, go to the house and deliver the hotspot, work with the technicians, and Wendy and Kyle will work that out of if they need to, a technician needs to go along, and then they go along with the bus driver who's taking everything around. That can be done. So they don't have to come to the district office if they have no way of getting to the district. And then the other piece is one of our principals said that the kindergarten and the first graders are having some difficulties utilizing the Chromebooks, the iPads. They're just not used to it. And, for these little guys, and especially our Ks and our TKs who are coming to school for the first time, and I know we had our K teachers at Henry Ford that really wanted to meet with them this first few weeks on one-to-one so that they get acclimated and know the iPad and so forth. And we were unable to do that because of the watch list that we're on and now the waiver and the whole bit. So with that being said, this one school site, the principal has asked that she wants to have some packets ready. And she asked because if parents can't come, again, while bus drivers are out doing some deliveries for the Chromebooks or hotspots or taking the technician to look at it because we can't get anywhere over the phone with the parent, we'll take out these packets of work that some of the parents are requesting in some of our, and especially this one school. I think there were 2 schools, but I think the other school has it pretty well taken care of how that's going to be managed. So I know that's a lot of information, but the beefiest part that I wanted you to really pay attention to is when you see that I am pushing these orders through for this technology, and the Chromebooks, the hotspots, and then looking at staff's also devices. It'll be a hefty number coming through, but the dollars that I'm using are the dollars that are appropriated through the CARES Act, and it's for our kids. So the distance learning will really materialize and work well. Any questions for Kyle on technology? Sorry, Kyle, I took up some of your time.
That's fine. I mean, you did a perfect job just outlining everything.
Board members, any questions?
Dennis.
Hi. First, Kyle, thank you to you and your team. I know you guys have been working pretty much around the clock since back in March to make our students and teachers and staff successful. So thank you. I just had a couple questions. What's the life of a Chromebook? I seem to remember 3 years. Is that the right number?
No, it's actually what they've done is it was 5, and now they've extended it to 6, and there's a potential of it going to 8.
Okay, thank you. On the devices, you said there was 400 devices not recovered. Is that because I was a student and I got to keep it over the summer and now I'm using it again, or is that 400 devices that actually are gone?
It's 400 devices that we think are gone. After we collected devices on August 5th, 6th, and 7th, we provided a list to each school of the devices that were missing. We asked the office managers and the office assistants to please call these families and ask them to return the devices. We then picked up all the devices that were returned the week of August 10th. I then updated those lists and provided updated lists to each of the site principals over the weekend. And we requested that they not issue a new device until the students turned in an older device. So if they'd had a device over the summer, that also brought in quite a number of those devices. So we're a lot better than I thought we might be. There's just some of them that have just been lost. We have students who have moved out of the area that we haven't been able to recover devices from. In fact, there's quite a few of those where students have just left the area, they've left the district, and we haven't been able to catch up with them and recover the devices.
Okay, thank you. How many more hotspots do we think we need now that we're coming to the conclusion that we need more than, can't have 3 kids on one device?
So right now we have approximately 1,500. I have another quote for another 700 that we can execute anytime.
Okay, thank you. And the cost for a hotspot's roughly $500?
No, much less than that. So
Oh.
our current deal with T-Mobile, who we purchased the hotspots from, is the hotspot costs nothing. We pay for the service, which is $15.17 per hotspot per month. So for those hotspots, I believe the 1,000. I'd have to go back and run the numbers. I think at 500, we were somewhere a little over $100,000 per year.
Okay, thank you. And the new machines you're going to order, how fast, the new 8 gigabyte devices, how fast can you get those?
I'd have to reach out to CDWG, who's our supplier, to see where they're at. I know that the 100 Chromebooks that we're still waiting for, both of those orders came in late July. So we're about 4 weeks from the time that we placed those orders. So I'd have to check. I did ask for a quote for some Chromebooks today. I got the quote fairly quickly, but I don't know what the turnaround time is right now from Acer.
So maybe we should put Janet on that. Thank you, Kyle.
Okay, you're welcome.
Go ahead, Maria.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Kyle, thank you very much. As Dennis said, I'm just amazed at how much you and your team have done all this time. I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
How many of the Chromebooks that are not 8 gigabytes do we need?
So right now, I'm going to have to run those numbers after we brought in the large number of Chromebooks we brought in this summer. So we will have some models, some of the older Dell models that are the Dell 3120s that were purchased in 2015. They're ending the end of their useful life, so they're about 5 years old right now. The next oldest Chromebooks that we have are the Dell 3180s that are a year younger than those, so they're about 4 years old right now. And then we have a variety of different Chromebooks that we've purchased in the last 2 to 3 years that are actually the ones that are actually running quite well. So we have some that we purchased in late 2018 and 2019 that are running really well. The Dell 5190 models. We also have moved since 2018 to all of our Chromebooks now have the ability to do a 360 flip and have pen support. So students can now flip it over and use it like a tablet. They can also use a stylus and write right on the screen. So they can do things like math equations onto a blank screen and then save that as an image and then send that to the teacher. So the idea of not having to type equations and those kinds of things makes them a whole lot easier to use.
Okay, thank you. John, so this question would be for you. Thinking about equity for our students, I think that if you have the money, you really need to make sure that all our students have the latest equipment, because as you mentioned, they're having a hard time, and especially some families that need it the most. So I really would like to see us have like the Chromebook that Kyle just talked about with the stylus, so that the kids don't have to go look for the paper and pencil. Now, with regards to the ones that were lost, kids move all the time and they take their textbooks with them. So to me, it's just the cost of doing business. So it's, it's a machine, but it's pretty much the same as if they took the textbook with them. So anyway, I don't know if you're able to do that or not, but that's what I would really like to see.
Well, Maria, we are going to do everything we can for the equity piece on top of this. And many of our students who are in some of our school sites that are at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade do have these Chromebooks. Others do not. And for example, for our kindergarten I should say TK, K, and 1, it's not Chromebooks, it's Apple, it's iPads.
Right.
And so I won't go in that direction for them. As I was told today by whose parents definitely need some other support, they do not feel that they are at a place where they can support their child with technology. And they're really asking for the packets, even though I am still insisting that the technology be used with the child, with the teacher, in a small group setting. We need to figure out a way to support those parents who do not feel comfortable using the technology. And I'm going to talk about that a little later on as we get through this presentation, because as you know, right now we're on that watch list.
Right.
So I'm unable to do a waiver. The waivers, the process for the waiver and the waiver document itself is ready. I have those pieces that we need to work on. And I'll get into that a little bit later on this evening, because there are some students that really need the extra support, and this is what I want to do. And as I explained to principals today, but number one, we have to be off the watch list. Number two, I have to put a waiver in place and then get it approved. And then we could really definitely support those families that principals were talking about today that are not at all comfortable with using technology and don't want their kids to use technology. I understand that piece of not being comfortable or because of one's socioeconomics and you're not experienced with it, but I do not want the children to be deprived. So I'm going to try and go in a different venue, but for me to do that, I need a waiver. So
Right.
We'll
might also look at what the preschools did, because they were using, I saw the children using the iPads. So they were able to figure out how to communicate to the parents. So maybe we could do that as well. But anyway, I won't go on. I just want to make sure that especially those parents that are having a hard time have the latest device that will make it easier for them, because the last thing you want is one of those poor parents that is having trouble and then you get stuck in that loop. And it's like, that just turns them off. Anyway, thank you. That's all I have.
Elisa or Cecilia, did you have any questions or comments?
I do just have a comment. I also would like to thank everyone for all their assistance. Again, they do work, around the clock, and I do appreciate it as a parent. And as far as the Chromebooks go, I also think that getting the newer model would, of course, benefit a lot of the students. But again, just with patience, I think this year personally has started to be a great school year, and I think we just have to have a positive mentality. But again, I commend everyone, whether it's the director of technology or the administrators, the teachers, of course, have put in so many hours. So I do appreciate everything that everyone is doing for our students. So thank you.
Thanks, Cecilia. Elisa, did you have anything?
Yeah, I did. I just got kicked off briefly. Yeah, I wanted to say thank you very much, Kyle, to you and your team, and just to everybody. I mean, John, Wendy, everybody who has been pitching in on the technology. I know that there's been some bumps in the road, and you talked about those tonight. And I just want to let some of the staff and parents know who are on the call tonight that obviously we're working as hard as we can. And hopefully, as John and Kyle said, in the next couple of weeks, everybody will have the devices they need in the hot spots, and we can move into the rest of the year, and hopefully sooner than that for some. So anyway, and I just, Maria, completely agree with you on the equity issue. And I think if we have the money, which I think we do have the money from the CARES Act, this is a great way to spend it, because if you don't have technology, you're not going to be connected, right? So the sooner we can connect people, the better. So thank you for working on that. I did see just a couple of comments that are coming into us from some parents. I would just say, yes, if you've got some ideas, I think you could just, send an email to Dr. Baker. I mean, is what they're mentioning, just some ideas in terms of what's working, not working. And I think, we hear from parents as well, and we can start to incorporate that into what we're doing. So, and I think all along we've said that we're going to, do the best we can and then, tweak and move forward together. So it is good to hear from people in terms of what's working and not working. So anyway, thank you very much, because we also got some amazing stories of what was working really, really well. So I want to make sure that we acknowledge that as well, that, we had some classrooms that were just seamless, right? We got these amazing raving reviews. So we just got to get there for everybody, and we will. Confident in that. So thank you.
Okay, thanks. And I just want to say, so I know, Kyle, you were talking about the process you guys went through and with the little stickies with everybody's login and password on the device. Just as a parent, for me, it was super, super smooth picking up devices and, figuring out how to log in. It was kind of user error when I was trying to log in my youngest and he knew his email, but not his password. And I was like, where did I find your password? And all of a sudden I was like, it's on the device. It's right there. So that was great to be able to have access to that quickly. I do have a question on the 8 gigabyte devices. I know my oldest has one of those, and I know a lot of other parents that have been dealing with it they're still getting kicked off as many times as like 20 times an hour. And it's kind of frustrating for the students and the teachers. So I'm wondering, is it possible that something more like a connectivity issue, or is it Google Meet? And maybe that'll change once we move to Zoom, or is it the Chromebooks? Do you have any idea, Kyle?
So I think it could be a combination of all of the above. And really, I think in some cases it is. The other thing that we're seeing is that a lot of the educational apps have now had some breakdowns themselves this week, not just Zoom. So Zoom was down for a better part of Monday, but benchmark learning that we use for a lot of our curriculum was down for a better part of yesterday. Clever, that is our nerve center where all of the students go and log into Clever, and then that is their jump off place for all of their other applications. That was down for about an hour and a half on Monday. So I think we're seeing some growing pains with some of these applications as well. And it's not so much our bandwidth or the bandwidth of our students, but I think it's the capacity of some of these other services to be able to serve all those people, all of the new people now that are coming onto those services.
They're having to figure that out themselves too.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned, Kyle, that so there's the tech form that parents can fill out, and I saw that the links were placed in the chat. But you mentioned that there were staff at the district office. Is that something parents need to make an appointment for, or can they just walk in with a device that needs replacing?
They can just walk in with a device that needs replacing.
Okay.
And so we've been serving a lot of people that way, because we know that we don't want to disrupt learning in any long-term way. So especially in these first couple of weeks of the school year, that we really want to make sure that we have parents come in. A lot of it is, just helping the parents kind of get through the process of logging in for sometimes, or it could be they don't fully understand how the hotspot connects with the device, and we can do a real kind of short tutorial with that. And then there are some device issues that are legitimate device issues, and for the most part, we don't take a lot of time to try to correct them right there. We just exchange the device for the family and let them kind of be on their way.
Okay. And did you say, where is that set up? Is that in the boardroom?
That is correct.
Perfect. Thank you.
And then Kyle, just one more thing I wanted you to mention in regard to the Wi-Fi setup on the base side and the timeline on that. I forgot about that one.
Yeah, so we mentioned that the County Board of Supervisors has funded the increase of the number of county Wi-Fi locations on the base side, and they're looking at the 3 different geographic areas. They're looking for some deployment in the first part of October. And that part of that got pushed a little bit because they've had to take some of their resources and move them up to La Honda to deal with a lot of the people who have been displaced because of the fires there. But they are expecting to start to have some of those locations up and operational in the early part of October.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. So Liz, I'm going to come back to you now.
Try it again. Everybody cross your fingers. All right, let me share my screen. Okay, that looks the same. There we go. Okay, so as you know, a month ago, it feels like about 5 years ago, we produced a distance learning handbook for teachers. And that continues to be updated, and we continue to update that as well with newsletters that are going out a couple times a week with fast breaking news. And we wanted to provide a similar kind of resource for parents because we know that there are a lot of questions out there. It's not the same kind of content. There's some similarity with the content to the teacher's guide, but this is really directed towards a number of questions with a number of different audiences. And so this is posted on the website, but when I'm through with this, I'll take this link and I'll put it in the chat so that people can see this as well. It's also translated into Spanish. But I want to show you just a little bit of this document, and I'm not going to go through, it's about 30 pages, so I'm not going to go through it slowly, but just to give you an example of the kind of information that's in here. Again, hopefully as a resource for parents, and as we hear from parents what other information they would like to have, we can easily add it to this. So we have a table of contents at the very beginning, and these are our topics that are in our handbook. And I'll go through them quickly, but again, it's really meant to have kind of a widespread bit of information for a number of our different families and parent groups that we have across our district. And so this is available for people to just click on this. They don't have to go through the whole thing. If there's something that they see here that's interesting to them, it's bookmarked and it will take them right to that section. But we go through a little bit of the information about why we've developed the plans that we have based on state guidance. And again, this is very familiar information to all of you because you've seen this in a variety of presentations and different sources. But it gives the expectations that the state has for our program in terms of minimum number of minutes, in terms of outreach to students, in terms of taking attendance. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes, as well as our guidelines from our county office in terms of county Office of Education, as well as our county health department in terms of our safe returns to school and the safety policies that we practice. There's an overview of some distance learning, connections to the California Department of Ed, and then really gets into what is distance learning going to look like this year? How is it different from last year? In a narrative format, but what we also wanted to give people then were these kind of bullet points as to what are our goals. We've been asked that a number of times for our students, our staff, and our parents, particularly in this time of distance learning. And then we wanted to start off as well with resources for who can people call if they have questions. And Dr. Baker alluded to this earlier in terms of the kinds of questions that we're getting that are about schedules or practices or the needs for different kinds of devices. And so we want to make sure that people have the resources, who to call. At the different school sites, there's phone numbers because a lot of people will call or text, as well as email, but we know that not everybody has email, but these are direct links to email. So there's information about sites, there's information about the school psychologist, there's contacts for them. There's information about the state preschool. There's information about student services. These are the teachers on special assignment who will have an active role at each school site in outreach to students in terms of their engagement. And so this is the names of the people at the school sites. Our community school partnerships with Patricia Ortiz and the different people at the different school sites, who to call if there's a question about COVID-19, if there are questions about student and family health, there's information here, special ed, and then our communications people. So again, just trying to think of who all people might want to talk to and putting all their names in one place. There's also information about our different platforms and our different programs that are linked to information sheets. And many of these are sheets that the schools have sent home in their newsletters, but we also wanted to have that all in one place. So this is Clever, Seesaw, Google, as well as the state preschool information is in here as well. We're also linking the parent trainings that we're doing. So if parents didn't have the chance to see them, they will be also linked in here for people to be able to watch. And then we also have resources for at-home learning. And so we're talking about packets, but in addition to that, there are resources here as well if parents are needing some additional ideas for what to do with their students. And these are based on grade level. There's something for 6-8 coming up a little bit later. An overview of the parent's role in distance learning along with some tips, right? So that's in here. And again, I'm not going slowly enough for people to be able to read it, but that wasn't really the intention. The student's role in distance learning, and then some guidelines in terms of expectations for behavior for pre-K through first grade, and then for grades 2 through 8. And so this again would be things that teachers are certainly talking about with the students, but this is meant to be a support for parents to talk about with their children as well as what to expect in terms of behavior when they are in a distance learning environment. There's information here about attendance, and again, I'm going to show you a little bit more about that, but there's still an expectation that children are attending school every day. And when and if they don't, that if it's not an excused absence, that there is going to be specific outreach to the children and to their families to re-engage them, to find out what is the reason that they're not attending school, and then doing our best to problem solve with them so that the student gets engaged. And there's actually a flow chart that shows what this will look like. There are resources for the students who are learning a second language, for students who are learning English, Spanish, and Mandarin. We've been asked about that a lot when parents have come to the board meeting and saying that they can't help their children at home because they don't speak the new language. And so there are some resources for parents to be able to use in English, Spanish, and Mandarin. And then there's some information here about outreach and services to our homeless and foster youth, for people who are interested in that. Our mental and emotional well-being support of students, there's information here. And if parents or families would like to get more information or have a concern about their child, there's a mental health referral form that they can use. There's information here about students with IEPs and what our distance learning program is for students and how we are serving them. And then there's also information here for our gifted and talented youth. And this is a link to resources for families who would like to provide enrichment resources for their children. There's a lot of activities, grades pre-K through 8 in here. We're not offering a pull-out gate program this year. There's not a in-class program to pull out from. And we would like to see all children have access to these enrichment resources. And so that's listed in here. We have the information from the community schools and the different supports that are available at these different sites. Information about meals, and this has been updated for this year. Again, the technology support, so there's access to the forms that Kyle was talking about in here. Counseling, again, are the One Life counseling. And we have a few frequently asked questions, okay? And again, we can update this as more questions come in. So that's the view of the guide. This guide is also available in Spanish, and we have to give a huge thanks to our translators, to Gonzalo and Itzel, who translated all of those pages into Spanish, and a huge, huge thank you to Michelle Ramon, who took that and consolidated it into about 6 pages so it could actually be printed out. Because we know that not everyone will be able to or want to access all that information online. So that information has been made printable. It's not everything, but it is like the most important parts of that guide. And these will be printed out and will be delivered to the school sites, and parents can ask for them if they want a printed copy of this. And here it is in the actual format, where it's just the translated form. So that's the information about the parent handbook, and that's the information that we shared on Monday with the families, along with more information about the technology. And at that time, there are a little bit more technology glitches than there are right now, and so that's really good news. It's only been 2 days and things are falling into place. But this is another piece of information that is not in the handbook, but I wanted to share with you, because this is a very recent piece of information that has come to us yesterday in terms of an expectation for how we are monitoring attendance and engagement. And so this is something that was just talked about today with the principals, and I'm gathering more information about how we can make this manageable. But an expectation for us is that we are keeping not only daily attendance, but we're keeping records of student engagement and participation, and that this information will be looked at the very end of the year. And so this was a format that was supplied for us by the CDE, which is not very appealing looking. And this is page 2, even less appealing looking. But the good news is that we're working with my old team in the Santa Clara County Office of Education that is looking to see how we can take all of that and merge it together into a more manageable format. And so this is something that we will need to start doing as of September 1st. And so we'll be looking at how to best collect both attendance and engagement information. This puts it all into one sheet and it populates itself. It's so as teachers or whoever's filling this out on a weekly basis, by doing a few check marks, it kind of fills out the whole page. And so this is enough information for you to see how we're going to do it, but it's a heads up for you to see that this is going to be something that is going to be, we can report out to you more clearly at the next meeting when we have the actual format that we're going to be using available. But it is something that we are going to be expected to keep track of, the amount of time that we're meeting those minimum number of minutes that you heard about from Senate Bill 98 in both a combination of synchronous and asynchronous work 5 days a week, and then how we're keeping track of that. And in addition to that, there is a plan, and we've mentioned this before, and this is just to give you a little bit of information about what's expected in the plan. This is the plan that is due the end of September. In the past, there was an LCAP that you'll remember that was presented to you each spring. That was a 3-year plan, and each year there was an update to that plan. And this was going to be the year that year 1 of the next 3-year plan was going to begin. But that stopped back in March and April. And what has been put in its place now as of the end of July, beginning of August, is this 1-year plan, the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan, that shows what we're doing for this 1 year until we write our next 3-year LCAP, which will be due next June, right? We'll get back on the 3-year path next June, but there is an expectation, of course, that we're transparent with our public about what we're doing this year for our students and how we're spending our money. So the components of this plan will be a description of the stakeholder engagement, and not just the stakeholder engagement of that meeting, but also all of these meetings and webinars and all the other work that we've done up to this point to include families and teachers and our classified staff in our planning. But there needs to be a description of any in-person instruction if we're going to be giving some, and Dr. Baker will be talking a little bit later. We're looking at maybe very small numbers of children, getting a waiver for them, so we would describe that in here. But then we need to talk a lot about what are we doing in distance learning. And so we'll be talking about the devices. Again, the information that you were just receiving, we'll be describing that, how we are tracking pupil participation and progress, right? What kind of professional development was provided. And so we have a lot of that we will be able to talk about. The support of students with unique needs, and that's around our students with special ed in this particular item. What are we doing to identify learning loss that has taken place? And then what are we doing about that? What are we doing to support mental health and the social emotional well-being of our students? What kind of pupil and family engagement and outreach are we going to be providing? And again, this is for this 1 year. What is the school nutrition plan? And anything additional. And then the last component of this, and this has always been part of the LCAP, is that we need to be very clear about how we are increasing and improving services for our foster youth, our English learners, and our low-income students. And so we will have some things that we will be able to write about in that as well. But we still are at the point that we have some things in place, but we're very interested in having the stakeholders come together to see if they've got some other ideas of things that they would like to see happen during this 1 school year period. And that's it.
That's a lot of great information. Thank you so much, Liz. Board members, do you have any comments or questions? I don't see, is Dennis here? There he is.
So I had one. While Liz was talking, I went out to the district website and I couldn't find the Spanish version of this guide. So if somebody could just double check.
So I think you have to keep scrolling down. Did you go?
Okay.
First comes out in English and then you scroll down and it's in Spanish.
I couldn't
so
find it in either, but I'll look
I-
in.
I see a parent's guide to distance learning, and then it looks like a video link, and then it's got in blue a parent's guide to distance learning. And when I click on that, it's in English. And so somebody could check. I don't want to take the time
Sure,
now.
absolutely. No, thank you.
Dennis, can I just ask, where are you finding this on the website? Because I was also tooling around while
You go
Liz was
to the
talking.
you go to the RCSD main one, and then there's that big block in the middle, and you just scroll over and then go down.
Okay, thanks.
I think, doesn't it say resources for parents, or there's something on the top of the screen also? So I'll have Jorge look into that.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for all your hard work, Liz.
Sure, thank you. My pleasure. And it was a team effort. I didn't write that all by myself, right? We had a number of people were involved in that. So thanks to all of them.
Yeah, and I was just going to say I really like it because, you know, everything's kind of in one place, and I appreciate you putting all the contact information in there. I think that'll be really, really helpful for parents and students as they're trying to find things and all of that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So
Yeah,
same
I
here.
also really like that. Oh, sorry. I
Go ahead,
really
Maria.
like the contact information because it's something the parents always look for. Who do I call? What do I do? And the frequently asked questions. And I was so happy to see that it's in Spanish and that you're able to also pick up the most important pieces for a parent in a printed form, because as you said, a lot of them don't know how to find it online. So thank you to everybody that worked on it. This is just, I'm really amazed at all the stuff that you guys are doing in such a short time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cecilia, were you going to say something?
Yeah, so again, same thank you to the entire group that worked on this. For me, communications is a key. And so I do appreciate the fact that you guys are doing this, of course, for the parents. I think Redwood City is doing a great job with communication. You know, we get a text and an email, so that makes things a lot more, you know, just more accessible and better. So I do appreciate everything. And then the only question that I have regarding attendance, obviously teachers are taking attendance, and then what happens when the students log on and for whatever reason, whether they just don't want to be seen by their peers, turn their camera off, right? How do we know that they are actually there or not? And let me tell you why I'm asking this. Today was a PE day, and my son, believe it or not, even though he's at home, he gets embarrassed. So the first few minutes he was there, and then when I went to check up on him, I could see that he had his camera off, but he was really exercising, right? So just wanted, you know, again, that was PE, but what about with the core subjects? So just that, just to make sure that, you know, again, students are engaged, and how do we know that they're really there or not? So that would just be my question.
Cecilia, I want to piggyback on that too, because actually with the, she's still talking, but she's muted. With the issues with the Chromebooks and getting kicked, it also has been very laggy. And if they turn their camera off, it actually helps with that. So I know some teachers have been saying that's okay to do, but that's a good question, Cecilia.
Right, and so it is okay to do. And there are a lot of students who don't want to be seen for a number of reasons on the camera. And doesn't mean that they're not there and that they're not engaged. And so it's the teacher finding different ways to talk to the students, to have them write things in the chat, right? To be turning in some additional work and, you know, finding ways to engage students without needing to see them all the time. So I think these are things that we're learning how to do as we go along. And so one of the things that I'm hoping that this newsletter that I send out ends up becoming also is a way that teachers are sharing their tips for how they're handling some of these things. And so I know that last year there was some concern, and probably this year as well, that there were children who didn't want people to see what was happening behind them, right? And so they didn't, or or they were feeling shy about having people look at them. And so they didn't turn on their cameras, but they were present, right? And so it's how do we find out through different kinds of interactions that the student is still engaged and hasn't just like walked away. In terms of taking attendance, the way the state sees it right now is that as long as the child shows up at some point in time, that counts as attendance. But so that's why now they've added this whole component for engagement and participation. And so that's going to be the trickier thing to figure out how to really monitor that more carefully, because that's really important.
Liz, I'll just say again, thank you for all of that information that you've gathered together, and you and your team. It's really, really helpful for parents to have access to all of that information. And now more than ever, we need to over communicate everything for parents' sake.
Thank you.
Administrator's sake, teacher's sake, staff's sake,
Right.
sake. It's for everyone. Yeah, definitely. So I think Pati's here with us, and I wanted Pati to give an update on the childcare piece. So Pati.
Hello, good evening. Yeah, so it's been an interesting long summer. We had a great plan in place to provide this additional hours of support during our hybrid learning plan. And then, of course, summer came and we had a huge surge. And then we got on the watch list. All that to say that it did take some time to adjust and to find out what we were legally able to do on our campuses and who was legally allowed to do it. But at this point, and contracts and approvals will be coming your way, we have 3 private childcare providers willing to provide full-day childcare on our campus. And we have been able, with the state's permission, to redirect our ACES and 21st Century, which means our state and federal funding for after school, to help with childcare. Both the city, the YMCA, and hopefully the Boys and Girls Club are looking at kind of pivoting what they used to offer for us in terms of after school to do daytime childcare. I want to be a little more specific with what we mean by childcare, and we mean those programs that would be operating during school hours where kids would be in groups of 12 or less with a caring adult while they're doing distance learning, right? So they would still be doing distance learning, signing into their devices, but if you're have working parents that can't be there during the day or assist you, it's a great opportunity to be in a safe place and be able to do this. The sites we have identified where we can do this on our campus, and it's based again also in the availability of rooms where teachers are not using for their distance learning and they're not under construction. So we're going to have private contractors at Clifford and Roy Cloud, and we're going to use our amazing after-school partners at Roosevelt, Kennedy, Adelante Selby, and potentially Hoover. I feel unless we sign those contracts, I feel like I'm jinxing it, but I wanted to give you transparent information. We're very excited. I think it's going to help a lot. And even though we as a district are not facilitating it, I'm hoping to work really closely with our providers on and off campus. The city, for example, is providing childcare off campus for the other sites where they usually provide after school. And we're going to work closely so they are also very versed with the distance learning parent guide and with our tools and resources so the instructors and caring adults with the kids can help them. Nutrition department is super happy to help, and we had a conversation and they think they can provide the meals and the snacks for all our schools. We're also helping promote our school meal services more strongly, trying to promote it with our community-based partners as well. If you're a parent, a caregiver listening, and this is something that might interest you, I urge you to reach out to me directly or to your principal. If you by any chance have been an after-school family and you know your after-school director, reach out to them as well. But we are here to help. If you just send me an email, I can connect you to childcare opportunities and help you with that. And I don't know if I missed anything or there might be questions.
Oh, I think you've got it. Yeah.
Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, Patsy, I was just wondering, do you have a sense of how many students will be served ultimately as these all come online? Even a range would be helpful just to give us some idea.
Yes, so at Clifford and Roy Cloud especially, we're going to have a lot of rooms available, and we're looking at Kids Corner and PCC leasing space there. For Adelanta Selby, I think we ended up in 4 rooms. Kennedy doesn't have a lot of demand right now, so I encourage Kennedy families listening to reach out if this would interest you. They've had a bit of a hard time recruiting. I'm assuming also because since the summer went by, a lot of families made accommodations. The city is also going to be supporting our Henry Ford and our Orion Alternative Families off campus. And then the Boys and Girls Club wants to pilot at Hoover. I don't have the exact number. We're actually having a big meeting on Friday about it, but there is still space at a lot of our campuses. Roosevelt with the YMCA has 3 rooms available. Part of what we were working out had to do with health assurances and protocols. How do kids get on and off campus? Who's responsible for what parts of the health and hygiene guidelines? But there are a couple of other campuses identified with available space. And if it's a successful start and we see more demand, we're hoping to expand. I have been contacted by CBOs or nonprofits in the community looking to see if we have space.
So just so I'm clear, because I have, heard from a few parents. So if parents are interested in this, I mean, I'm hoping that our parents and students who traditionally have been served by the ACES and 21st Century grants, those would be our most at need students, those that are in lower socioeconomic status, that there's a mechanism for them to let either you, the school know, or the Boys and Girls Club know. Is that true? So that's sort of being taken care of?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I have. And then in terms of the others, the child care or I guess it's child care that would be happening with private, then those families are the ones who for those services. So they should just contact those providers directly, or if you hear about them, then you connect them with them. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because if I get a question, I mean, probably what I do is just send it to you, and I have been doing that. But anything else I should be doing, or just, and then for all the people that are on the, I know that we
no, and
well connected with other parents. It would be
yeah.
If parents looking for services for your student, what do you do if you haven't already connected with somebody?
Yes, so I will make sure I put my contact information in the chat, but hopefully after this Friday where we solidify providers' ability to serve, exactly how many adults will they be able to contract, so we know how many cohorts we're going to have, etc. We're hoping to put a one-pager to put on the website. But bottom line is all of our schools have some sort of provider they can reach, right? They've either worked with the Boys and Girls Club in the past or with REACH or with the YMCA. So if you are by any chance an ACES or 21st Century, an after school family, you could reach them directly, but you can also reach me. We haven't put formal information on the website while we were maneuvering through the details of possibility. We didn't want to then have to come back and say, this is actually not doable at this scale for health or safety reasons. I was going to go somewhere with that thought. I will put my contact information as a starting point, and I'm happy to redirect anyone that needs support, and I'll make sure to work with Jorge tomorrow on putting more information out there. But I do know a couple of our partners still have space just from reaching directly to the families they have worked with in the past. And actually the city posed a question to me today that I wasn't ready to answer. They have still space at their off-campus childcare programs. And because we're using our ACES funding to this point, they were only trying to serve cohorts within one school community. So Henry Ford is all at one city location, Orion is all at one city location. but they wanted to know how I felt about opening it up community-wide if they still had space, which has this intrinsic, you know what I mean? I can't say that word in English. Regarding mixing students from different school communities. And yet it's not happening on our campus and we're not facilitating it, but they still wanted my advice of how to go about opening it up community-wide if they still had space after reaching to an entire school community. I put that question out there for the board and our cabinet that's here tonight. And I wasn't ready to reply to them yet. I had to think about it a little more, what the implications were of that. But that's actually good news, means there is still space and families are being served.
So Pati, on our Boys and Girls Club are at Garfield, Hoover, and Taft. And I heard you say Hoover, they're still kind of looking at it. I know I met with, I didn't meet, but I sent Jenny the information she wanted because Jenny is like academic officer or something like that. I can't remember her exact title, but they want to start training their I think their mentors. And so between Linda, staff development, and Liz, they put together the different trainings that they can have virtually. I guess their videos and so forth that were put in place for our own teachers. And so the staff put together what would pertain to them. So hopefully they'll be able to utilize that and then move forward with the care for those three sites.
Yes, and I have been sending them information too. I download the guides we put out and the teacher information, and I send it to our partners. Even our partners that are still doing distance learning. So the Boys and Girls Club or REACH might not have started in-person services, but they are still helping our kids and reaching out and connecting with them. The Boys and Girls Club has a full virtual program going on. So does Citizen Schools. And I am happy to help them even more with, the sort of tools you just mentioned. The reason they're choosing Hoover first is because we have a lot of space available at Hoover versus the deep constructions happening at Garfield and Taft limit that more. And as you know, with your own conversations with Jenny and Peter, they're also trying to recruit more staff for the in-person services.
Correct. Yeah.
So can I just ask a clarifying question? When it comes down to, Hoover and using the Boys and Girls Club versus other organizations, like you mentioned, the city's helping with Henry Ford and Orion. What is the reason that it was chosen that Orion and Henry Ford were being held by in-person after-school program versus, let's say, Hoover, if perhaps that community may need more help with in-person versus online?
That's a great question. So the city is actually going to help in person at Atlantis, LB, Kennedy, Orion, and Henry Ford, because those are the schools they usually serve year round. And that's where we have allocated as a state and federal grantee funds for the city to use versus our ACES funds in the Bay side have usually been in a contract with the Boys and Girls Club for those three sites. We rather start with the Boys and Girls Club because they're an amazing partner, incredibly aligned and versed with everything we offer, and they're willing to. The city doesn't have the manpower to expand even more. We are going from a 3.5 hour after school program to a full day program, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So actually it's our partners that are kind of complementing the operational cost of that extended day, right? They're putting funds in for all those additional hours to try to keep the fees low for families, because we definitely don't want childcare fees to be a barrier for families. The Boys and Girls Club traditionally doesn't charge fees at all for after school program. They supplement all additional operating funds for our schools, but moving from a 3.5 hour program to a full day program means way more increased budget. So they're working on that, working on staff. But as we move closer, I have a big meeting with them on Friday. If it doesn't seem that they can provide services at the other Bayside schools, we might just regroup and see how many classrooms we actually have available at those sites that are not being utilized by teachers and not under construction, and maybe work with some of the community-based agencies that have reached out. And they have only reached out very, very recently. I'm part of a County Office of Ed task force around out-of-school partners and childcare. We meet weekly with Rod Shao, and there's a couple of groups in there that might potentially be interested, but they're not interested in full-time or full day. They're usually more enrichment programs. Actually, our childcare partners in our local community have seen a big decrease in childcare need from the summer. They had big demand all through the spring, all through summer. And now that the school year started, they've actually, some of them are closing shop altogether because there's not a lot of kids. We assume it's a mix of two things. One, that there's a big surge right now, so families are a lot more scared. And two, in the summer and in the spring, we were outdoors for most of the time, so they felt their kids were relatively safe, versus now we're looking at a lot more indoor time because they have to do the distance learning and because the weather's going to change soon, and that's a worry for families. We are going to look at how much need there is in the Bayside and see if it can be covered at the Hoover campus, or if not, we're definitely going to expand even more. But we were surprised to see that even at the places we already have up and running, and where we're contacting proactively our families around childcare, the need is not as huge as we thought. It probably is a mix of the fear, like our community-based partners are seeing in their child care centers. And it is also probably the fact that at this point they have made other arrangements. But we will definitely make sure Bayside families are covered, Cecilia.
Great.
One way or the other.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Hi, thank you, Pati. When you embarked upon this, I did not think you would find as many spaces, so you've exceeded my estimate substantially, so thank you very much. I had one process question. It's great that the state and the Fed are going to be flexible on the ACES money, but do we still have to be involved to make sure that the students are going through and using that money qualify versus, you know, third-party provider doesn't do that and we end up having students that don't qualify and then we have to pay the money back?
Well, they have actually waived attendance processes for this year. So we were highly penalized in the past for not meeting our attendance goals with those grants. This year, they have waived the attendance goals completely, and they have provided through the SB 98, is that correct? The new bill, a lot of flexibility during the hours, the ratio, and the type of program. And in general, the ACES language asks you to prioritize certain group of students, but doesn't let you discriminate against general ed. So anyone can go in. What you are expected is to never have a barrier based on socioeconomic, ELs, et cetera. So you're allowed to charge, you're allowed to have all your students on your campus apply, you should. What you have to make sure is that you give priority placement if you have a wait list to certain students that are named within the policy, and that no kid is turned away based on fees, et cetera.
Thank you.
Anybody else, or did everybody have a chance to speak? Okay. So Pati, I just want to say thank you. I know you've been working incredibly hard on this, and I'm really impressed with what you've been able to pull together. So thank you for all that work.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I do want to say, I don't want to take all the credit. I probably have worked with every single member of our team and in cabinet around this. Wendy has helped me, Martin has helped me, Sarah and Michelle with the wellness and facilities. It's, I nag a lot and bother a lot, and everyone's always supportive and responsive.
Well, thank you for that. Dr. Baker, did you have more
Yes.
staff to present?
Yes, I'm not, yes.
Okay, because we have a couple of comment cards.
Right. So Wendy, would you take on what we're doing at the district office at this point in time? From what
Sure, and I want to thank everybody, especially Kyle that spoke and John about some of these items that were on my list, and so I will probably be more brief than normal. But nice to see everyone tonight. I do want to let you know that we've had an evolution at the district office since July 15th when we all came back on a staggered schedule. This is our crunch time at the district office to really assist families with registration, back to school packets, and of course now all of the technology related things. And so Dr. Baker gave the directive that we will be open to the public Monday through Friday. It's best between 9 and 4. We will be exploring perhaps one evening that might be available for families. And so that has to do with personnel and hours worked and so forth. So that's something I'm working on right now. But we do want to make sure that the district office is accessible, because that is the hub now to pick up devices and hotspots and get a lot of the questions answered. I also am very appreciative of parents that have alerted us about suggestions about how to update our website, or things that parents might really need that need to be front and center, that, you know, we're racing around very busy. And so suggestions that have come in have been very welcomed. I have been recently interacting with somebody who's on our call tonight that gave some great suggestions, and I want to thank him for all of that as we're working through them. So just ways that we can always do things better, and I appreciate that. So just to be really clear, and Kyle mentioned about the tech form, and that was put in the chat. We have streamlined personnel so that our receptionist desk has more support. And so I encourage families to call, and even if they need to leave a message, which quite frankly, they may very well have to during the day because of the need for our receptionists to be servicing and helping families, to leave a clear message with the return phone number or email that's very clearly stated, so that we can get back to you certainly within 24 hours, if not sooner. We are actually hiring additional personnel to simply respond to families that are calling in or that are emailing, especially now just this weekend with our hotspot email address that was published and distributed to families when they have concerns or needs for a hotspot. And Kyle just this afternoon confirmed that two of his technology technicians are able to get back to parents within hours. So we have addressed that. There were some bumps along the road with some of that communication, and we got all that worked out. So that is an update to you. We also alerted our clerical staff, certainly at the district office, that everyone will be there 5 days a week, certainly those that assist the public. Prior to this, it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so we are increasing those hours. And I would encourage people to reach out to me if they have a specific question or concern. I'd be more than happy to help and respond. I'm looking at my email 24 hours a day, it feels like, and we want to make sure that questions are answered. So please do that. And then, as John mentioned, you know, trying to work with other staff to support families like the bus drivers and things. So we're looking at ways personnel can assist in various aspects. I did want to also bring up at this time just a quick follow-up about librarians, and Kyle, feel free to jump in, but I was requested to speak about this tonight. We do have our first book distribution. We originally had planned it for August 28th, but it did get moved to September 16th. And so Kyle is organizing that with the librarians to get books out into students' hands, physical books. I know that Kyle has lots of resources for digital media, which is important, but we also want to be able to get books in students' hands. And so the librarians are working on a plan for distribution with Kyle on that end. So that was my items, John.
Perfect, thank you.
Anybody have any comments or questions? Feel free to hop in.
I just wanted to say thank you for the book distribution project. I know it's a lot of work, but I think that the kids will really enjoy holding that book. Having digital access is wonderful, but as you heard Kyle earlier, we were only able to get 1,000 kids a library card last year, and although the PLS, the Peninsula Library System, is working on getting everyone in the county, at least every student, a digital card, it's going to take a while, and some of the resources sometimes changed and make it a little more difficult. So I'm really happy to hear that they're working on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy, for the update.
You're welcome.
Okay, Janet, if I could just go over two more things that I want towards the end to alert the board. So as you know, that we really anticipate during the distance learning the need for additional counseling services for our families and for our students, and more so for our students. I heard of an incident that took place, and the reason I heard about this is because of one of our own employees who many of us know well and work with at the district office, and their child was definitely really not in tune to being on a device to have instructions. So really just went, nope, not gonna do it. I'm not there, forget it. I'm not doing it. I think they got him to do like 20 minutes today, but we're hearing more and more items like that. So what I plan on doing, I'm sorry, my screen just went down. I have two screens going so I can keep up with what I want to talk about. So what I'm planning on doing, and I mentioned to principals today, was to make sure that there are counseling services really available for our most vulnerable families and our students. So I asked Andrea, our Director of Wellness, to get me some figures on what it would take to make sure that our students who definitely on the Bay side, and then students, we have students, you know, that are vulnerable also at Roosevelt and at Ford and also at Clifford, that are either free and reduced lunch or parents have lost the ability to work at this point in time. So I asked her, please give me the information on cost of providing some additional resources to these most—
Sorry, Dr. Baker, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Just so you know, she posted that she's here. If there are any questions, just so you know she's here.
Perfect. So I asked her to give me some additional information in regard to what it would cost for the additional services for our most vulnerable. And this is a real equity issue piece too. So I do have the dollar amount. So what I'm going to ask Andrea to do is to move forward and start meeting with the principals at these school sites so that we can put some additional counseling services in place. This, as we all know, is an equity issue, and we want to move in that direction. So I just want you to be aware that there will be some additional probably contracts coming before you for this, and it's for the students in the area of counseling. And we'll use the dollars that are allotted to us under the CARES Act. And of course, you know, Priscilla will see it ahead of time and so forth, and go through the contracts that she always does. But I just want you to make you aware that that is going to start taking place. So there is more counseling available. All right. And thank you, Andrea, for putting it together in such a quick time fashion for me. I'd given it to her last week, but I hadn't responded to the email. And so I responded earlier today and she got it for me right away, and she's working on it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So that's one piece. The other piece that I want to talk to you about, and you all know because you're on those wonderful county calls every week, many of you, if not all of you, are on those calls. The waiver for bringing any type of in-person, whether it be instruction, whether it be counseling services or so forth, is now, the process is now available. We are not able to apply at this point in time because we are on the watch list for that. With the exception of childcare. Childcare is still in that realm that, you know, you can still have at school sites. And that is still in place by the county health department. But to bring any student back, any of our most vulnerable students who need some additional instruction because they're ELs, because they're newcomers, or maybe because they're RSP students. That is not allowed yet. By yet, I would like to, once the state is off the watch list and working very closely with the teachers union, determine if it's feasible to bring back some students in a very small group, 1, 2, or 3 kids at a time, to really give the instruction that is needed for these most vulnerable children. Again, we'd have to have an agreement with our teachers and also an agreement with our parents to go in that direction. With that being said, we'd have to follow through with the protocols of the PPE, the social distancing, and everything, which we would normally do anyway. And we are doing it right now as teachers are using their classrooms for instruction during distance learning. So I just want to make you aware that I am going to go down that road if I can make it happen. We are going to be definitely looking at the students and looking at the social emotional issues, and we're also looking at their grade level and how far they have slided since last spring when we started distance learning. I'm also looking at the newcomer kids that are new, that are brand new to the country, that are here, that are on distance learning with us. So just be aware that when you start listening on these county conversations that are happening, and you start hearing from other board members that are on these calls that they're doing A, B, and C with the waiver, my intention is to do something also, but a bit different than what they are doing. Do you have any questions in regard to that?
So just to confirm, then you are going to be applying for the waiver, because the waiver is available. You just need to apply for it, but you'd be applying for it in a more specialized fashion.
Correct.
Fashion than the hybrid model.
Exactly.
Right. For now.
For now, that's right.
I think that's great if we can figure out if there's some group of students who are high needs that we can do more in-person for. And we've talked about who those groups might be. You know, some of our younger ones, our special ed, our ELs, our newcomers, those far behind, like you said. So I think that's great.
Any other questions, concerns?
So I have a question regarding the waiver, and if we do decide or are actually able to get it and bring some of the students back, are we talking one-on-one with their teacher or with another staff member for a few hours, or are we talking the entire day if right now they're going from 8:30 till about 2:30?
So that's a very good question, because you know our teachers are working from that time frame. So it most likely, depending on the teacher, if it's a specialist, say it's a reading specialist that's working with those students. The reading specialist, we may, and I'll have to check with Wendy and with the MOU that we have with the teachers, is there a manner in which I could flex those hours, where maybe I could have that specialist start, instead of starting at 8, maybe start at 9 and go until whatever that 7-hour period is. And the idea is to work with a very, very small group of students when they're working with them on a regular basis, 1 to 3 children, depending on the need of the child. When we're talking RSP, there are some RSP children that are definitely eligible because they're ELs, free and reduced lunch, and because of the sliding that took place during that springtime while we were embarking on distance learning. So to answer your question, Cecilia, it'd probably be a combination of a specialist, and it could be a classroom teacher, which we spoke about at our principals meeting today. And Wendy said if it were a classroom teacher that wanted to work after their hours, that we could go in that direction and it wouldn't necessitate amending the MOU. Am I correct, Wendy?
Yes, that is correct, John, because that would be a voluntary opportunity for teachers to determine if they want to move in that direction outside of the workday.
Does that help, Cecilia?
Yes. Now another comment. So with that said, what happens if, like you just stated, that perhaps they might start at 9, or again, it might be after their hours, when we actually consider whether this is going to be more of I can't even think, just a hardship on the parents. If we think about those parents that perhaps don't drive, how are they going to get their students to the specific site or wherever they're going to be? So I guess just a thought, because as you were saying this, it just came to mind. So if maybe you can.
That's a very good question.
Talk a little
So our bus drivers are not driving right now. So there's a bus. There are several buses and there are several bus drivers. So they could be utilized.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? All right.
So John, I had two things that weren't covered tonight. So, and I don't think you would know the answer because you've got like 1,000 moving pieces, but I think it would be helpful at the next meeting to get an update on lunches, how we're doing on lunches, distributions. And then I know Priscilla has it, but I think it would be helpful for us to see kind of her log sheet of the CARES money and what's been spent and how much is left.
Can I speak?
Not tonight. I
Okay.
mean, at a future meeting.
When you're back from vacation.
Yeah.
And then also, John, I was wondering if maybe at the next meeting we could have an update on enrollment as part of this, or just a separate agenda item. Yeah, I mean, it could be part of this or not. But.
Yeah, definitely. Perfect. Can I just have one more and then I'm done, and unless you want to ask me other questions. So I wanted to talk about, and I know there's anxiety, there's frustration as we're going through this distance learning. And I do understand parents have concerns and they have issues, which is just normal. But I would really like us to follow the policy that we do have in place. When a parent is really concerned about something that's going on with their child in the classroom, if the parent could please, number one in our policy, it says go directly to the teacher. If you're still not satisfied, then go to your principal. If you feel that your principal has not given you the correct response or is not going in the direction in which you hope, you come to me. And then I will take it on. And if I determine, many times I do take it on, but there's sometimes I don't, and I give it to another staff member. Like, for example, I gave something to Wendy this week to work with one of our families. I had worked with this parent earlier last week, but there were some follow-up questions, and so I gave it to Wendy to follow through with. So I would like us to really adhere to this, and for board members to let us respond first, and we'll always copy you. I'll copy you when I'm responding to a parent, but to have us all giving parent information, it really does not help me when I have to read this whole thread and go through things and determine where I'm going to send it. If I'm going to take it on, or if there's somebody that is more versed in that concern that the parent has. So I would really like us to adhere to the policy if we could. Any questions or concerns about that? Dennis?
Yeah, so it just so happens I had a conversation with a principal today and they were basically bringing up the same thing, and they gave a good example. They said, how would you like to be at work? And everybody just goes to your boss's boss before you have a chance to get a chance to fix it. And I think, and I'll say I'm guilty of it. And we all have our masters in governance, and we were taught not to do this, but we've got ourselves in the bad habit of trying to be responsive to parents. But I think it would also be helpful to put something out. So I will commit to do that. That's the first point. The second point, I think it would be helpful to send something to the parents to let them know, because it actually, there was an example today where it would have been much quicker if they had gone directly to the principal rather than getting board members involved. So I think it's not only kind of disrespectful to the staff, but it's also slowing the process down. So I will commit to, I'll just respond, thank you. Somebody from the district office will get back to you.
And that'll be great. And then we do. And if we don't, then it's on us. It's definitely on us. And I'll take the hit for it, because if I don't do it, then what I normally do, like I said, the example that I used just a moment ago, I met with the parent last week on Friday, real early in the morning. The parent gave me some times, and I called around 6:30 in the morning because that was the time the parent was available. But then there was more to it that came. And so what I did after that was I then forwarded it to Wendy, and then Wendy took the rest to work with this parent on. It would be very, very helpful. And I will send out to the parents a communique that indicates that, because it's many times when a parent comes directly to me and wants to talk about a teacher, I revert them. You need to go back to the teacher, and then if you're still not satisfied, go to the principal. If that still doesn't work, and then you need to come to me. And if I don't respond to you, then you need to go to the board, because the board is the one that does my evaluation. The board is the one that hired me, and the board is the one that can fire me. So any questions?
I just wanted to say, is that part in the handbook? If not, perhaps we should include it as a reminder. And also, Jorge and Michelle have been sending out those very nice messages to parents. Perhaps it could also be a reminder. And, you might also put down there are times when the parent doesn't have a good relationship with the teacher. So maybe if they want to skip that step, I don't know how you feel, but sometimes that's the issue, that they can't talk to the teacher, so they should go to the principal, or however you want to do it. But I just think we should give them an option somewhere in there. But definitely a reminder, because everybody's stressed, as you know, right now, and we forget. And I will do as I have been doing, and sending them back and see how it works out.
Anyone else? Elisa, I think you were trying to say something.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say that I just want to agree with Dennis and Maria. I think it would be helpful to send out a reminder to everybody, because we only have, there's 15 of us on the call tonight. So I do think a reminder out to parents would be helpful. I think what's happened is that it feels like it has gotten worse the last couple of months, because I think we got into the crisis where I think board members were trying to answer questions. So they would go away from you because you were getting hundreds of things. But yeah, we've gotten back to a point where many of them are now education and academic questions. They're questions for the teacher first and the principal. So I thank you for the reminder, and I will do a better job in terms of pushing it back to the parent to make sure they talk to the teacher or the principal first. So I just think a reminder for everybody is a really good idea, because now we're sort of back into the school year, and hopefully out of the crisis that we were in, March through last June and all through the summer. So yeah, so thank you for that. Because I agree, like sometimes you wind up getting 5 or 7 emails from different people, and it's very confusing. So I can only imagine how it is for the teacher who's trying to then do the right thing, right? So yeah, thanks. And then there's a few questions in the chat, John, that I think you can just look at in terms of what you and Jorge put together in terms of kind of, what the process is.
Good. What I'm going to do is have Kyle copy the chat for me, and then he can send it to me so I can go through it. Anyone else? Great, thank you.
Okay, so we have just a couple of speaker cards, and it looks like the first speaker just recently left the meeting. So we will move on. And a reminder that public comments are 3 minutes each, and I do have my timer. I can share my screen for that. The first speaker will be Michelle Smith, followed by Maria Stockton.
Hi, good evening. First, I just want to say thank you. I have 2 kids at 2 different schools, and well, our middle school, we already had some experience last year. It has really gone really well this year at Kennedy, but really where my son's at Adelante Selby, and I am just wholly just like flabbergasted, impressed with how things are going. His teacher has everything. It is completely different, and it is really incredible what they've been able to put together. Of course, there are some growing pains, but we're working through them. I did email Kyle and Dr. Baker this afternoon. Kyle responded about, and this is a comment that I'm making to you all. I know that there is no easy solution, but I want to bring it up because I feel like it is detrimental to education. My son on day 1 figured out that he could use YouTube, and now I really can't leave the room. So today I actually took his district computer and gave him an iPad with YouTube blocked, and he'll get to watch videos at a different time. But it is not just our household. We heard about there's a dad group at Adelante who, again on day 2, is like, how can we block YouTube? How can we block YouTube? And I know that it is a tool that is necessary for our education, but I feel like the benefit to the I guess the damage is, I don't know if it's really in that positive direction. If a child is on YouTube, in the background, they're on Google Meet, but then they're also on YouTube at the same time. So I know that that you guys are short-staffed. I just feel like we need to find a better solution to this issue, because I feel like it is not. It's just like, I can't sit next to my son for 6 hours, and I know that many families are in the same situation as us. So I just wanted to say, beyond all of that, it's going great. It's just that one thing is just like a really, really huge issue in our home, and I know in many other families as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. I've learned too that those kids can be sneaky and figure out all the things they can get away with on their devices. So we'll look into that. Next is Maria Stockton.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just want to do some follow-up. Before the classified and the people came back to the sites, there was supposed to be some equipment there for our protection, and to this day, most of the schools don't even have the barriers that were supposed to be there for our protection. The temperature machine has broken down twice already. There is no protocol of how we're going to handle parents coming in. They just walk in. It seemed to me there was supposed to be some kind of process where parents had to call to make an appointment, or the door would be closed until we invited them in, but they're just walking in with no concern. They're wearing masks though. So with that, I'm really, really concerned that we are getting into a stage where we're just comfortable coming back. Not all of us. I was comfortable coming back with the things we were told were going to be in place. I do not feel comfortable now without barriers and parents just walking in and being able to be there and handing me stuff, and it's just very uncomfortable. Also, the equipment for the mask coverings. I see the custodians are just wearing the paper masks that were to give the kids. That isn't what we had talked about for protection for our custodians. The other thing is some of our work can be done at home, and one of my jobs was calling parents. I understand now I no longer can make those phone calls because we were making it on the district computer with Google Voice, and the trial is over. So now I have to go into work to make phone calls. I'm wondering if there's a different process we're going to be able to do that so we can be at home. And the other thing I wanted to ask about is that you know, most teachers are working at home. It's their choice to come out. But a lot of our employees are being told they have to be on site unless approved to go home, and they're approved to work at home, and that's a process. I don't understand why the district doesn't say for your safety stay home unless it's mandatory work to be on the site. So I'd like us to have a little bit of consideration that yes, it's fun, things get better, but let's look at the numbers that are still going up, and maybe that's because we don't have the things in place that we should. And my fear is we should start planning now for when we return so this stuff doesn't hit us all at once. Thank you.
And I'd like to respond to some of those items because they're inaccurate, and it bothers me that it was painted that way. There was a very clear guide that went out to employees to return, including the public returning, including the public taking the wellness survey, including when the thermometer breaks down, use a handheld one. Plexiglass has been installed at the appropriate places at the office staff. Masks were given, all appropriate PPE by the CDC guidelines. We have followed every single health protocol, and there's a whole committee which Maria Stockton served on this summer that implemented and instituted this to occur. Regarding working on site, we were very clear that there was a delay on phone usage from home, and we have created a safe atmosphere for people to come and return to work, with workspaces being cleared with 6 feet apart, mask wearing, all of the signage and protocol that every essential business is doing. So I will follow up with Maria Stockton tomorrow morning on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you, Wendy. And that's actually it for comment cards. So if there are no other comments or questions from Dr. Baker or board, we can move on.
No, I'm fine.
Okay, great. Where's my agenda? So we are now on consent items. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And was that Cecilia?
Whoever.
Okay, Cecilia. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee McBride,
Aye.
Trustee Marquez,
Aye.
Trustee Diaz-Silva,
Aye.
Vice President McAvoy,
I can see she said aye, but I can't.
President Lawson.
Aye. Okay, on to item 10.1. I'm here at Echo. Resolution 6, reduction of certain classified services.
Yes, thank you. So I'm bringing to you tonight two specific situations in which there is one campus supervisor and one instructional assistant, specifically for a very unique program that the sites are not able to fund with categorical funds moving forward during this time of distance learning. So at the last meeting, I did bring to you a campus supervisor in a similar situation, and this is a duplicate of that at a different site. So a campus supervisor's primary focus is to really work with students on campus, crowd controls, supervision, etc. Very important position, but with students not being on site, it's difficult for sites specifically to pay for that particular work. So that is the rationale behind that. So it's for lack of work. For the instructional assistant, we have a multi-tiered system of support instructional assistant that was funded at Roosevelt that, once again, same situation where with students not being there is difficult for this particular type of work. So that is what this resolution is for tonight.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Ms. Maria,
Second.
Elisa, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee McBride,
Aye.
Trustee Marquez,
Aye.
Trustee Slocum,
Aye.
Vice President McAvoy,
Aye.
President Lawson.
Aye. Item 10.2, Resolution 7, approval of Ed Code options for teaching assignments.
Yes, this is, we have two situations in which both teachers are fully credentials, but due to the middle school schedules are asked to teach one class outside their preliminary credential. So the California teaching credential allows for, the CTC allows for situations in which we have very effective teachers, but due to these changes, we're asking them to teach something that is outside of their credential temporarily for this year, which is what the Ed Code waiver is for.
Any comments or questions? Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, I had a question. We don't see who the people are, so are we're just making a broad overview statement? We're not opining on these people. These two people are adequate.
So you have attachments to this board memo for two employees.
Oh,
That-
maybe I've got. Hold on.
That
Oh
filled out.
yeah, I do. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got everything in a folder and I missed it. Yes, I do. One's Hoover and one
Yes.
is Roosevelt. Sorry.
No worries, that's fine, no problem.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Maria, can we have a roll call vote, please?
McBride,
Aye.
Trustee Marquez,
Aye.
Trustee Slocum,
Aye.
Vice President McAvoy,
Aye.
President Lawson.
Aye. So this is 10.3, recommendation approval of local assignment options in areas of special skill and preparation outside of credential authorization.
Yeah, so the first time we formed a committee called the Local Committee on Special Assignments was last year, and we brought to the board the new opportunity, similar to an Ed Code waiver, to grant teachers to essentially be teaching courses outside of their credential. And so far, we have only utilized the situation for elective classes, and that's what we're bringing to you tonight. So the attached spreadsheet is the documentation that the state requires the board to consider for each of these teachers listed here who are seeking to teach elective classes. So it could be, you know, photography or art or something outside of their credential, but to one group of students. So the Commission on Teaching Credentialing is very specific about multiple subject teaching credentials and single subject teaching credentials and the qualifications of such. And usually it has to do with the groups of students that are being taught, even for just one period. So you could have a multiple subject teacher that's very tenured and seasoned teaching one grade level. And if they teach, let's say, for example, 6th grade, and if they teach a 7th grade elective, we need to come to the board and ask for permission for them to do that. So it's a unique nuance within the credentialing, and that's why the state has allowed school boards to consider these. And so you've noticed on this document shows the justification on why the teachers feel that they are well versed to teach these subjects that they are planning to for electives. I do want to point out Garfield is not on the list, and I might be bringing that to you on the 9th if I need credentialing considerations. They're starting their program just slightly later, so that's why that might be coming to you on the 9th if we need to reconvene the committee. But all the other schools are accounted for. And I want to say kudos to Aaron Keikos in HR that did an excellent job on this particular committee work.
Any questions or comments?
Can board members take any of these classes?
Well, now that it's distance learning, you probably can pop in.
Dance like your
Yeah.
hair's on fire. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, I was
feel
going to say, one of the things, no, I was going to say, I love the list, just seeing all the different fun electives that students are getting an opportunity to experience. Yeah. And thank you to the teachers for doing them, because you're right, it takes some extra work on their part to put the curriculum together and all of that.
Yes, it's a great opportunity for the kids, and hopefully a bright light also for the teachers to be doing something unique in their day as well.
So I'll move it forward.
Was that Elisa?
Yeah, so moved.
Okay. For a second?
Second.
Cecilia? And a vote, please.
Trustee McBride.
Aye.
Trustee Marquez.
Aye.
Trustee Diaz-Silva.
Aye.
Vice President McAvoy. President Lawson.
Aye. Okay, thank you. So we are now on 10.4, provisional internship permit.
Yeah, so we have a wonderful teacher at Garfield who is going on maternity leave. And so Lupe Torres Cajil, the principal, was able to secure one of their beloved long-term subs, Mr. Cosio, to teach in her behalf for this year. We're unsure of how long the teacher will be out on maternity leave. And so I'm bringing forward to you the emergency credential, the provisional internship permit for Mr. Cosio to fill that role. And it will allow him to have an appropriate contract and of course be the teacher of record in her absence.
Do we have any comments or questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Cecilia? Do we have a second? Was that Elisa?
Yes.
Okay. And a vote, please.
Trustee McBride.
Aye.
Trustee Marquez.
Aye.
Trustee Diaz-Silva.
Aye.
Vice President McAvoy.
Aye.
President Lawson.
Aye. So item 10.5, adoption of resolution 8, sufficiency of instructional materials.
So this is brought to you every year, this resolution to enable us to state that we have sufficient textbooks or instructional materials for each student within the Redwood City School District. You have been receiving this, I think, for the past 11 years now, this resolution each year. Questions?
Okay, if there's no questions, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Dennis?
Second.
Marie, sorry, Cecilia. And a roll call vote, please.
Trustee McBride.
Aye.
Trustee Marquez.
Aye.
Trustee Diaz-Silva.
Aye.
Vice President McAvoy.
Aye.
President Lawson.
Aye. Great, so we are moving on to 11.1, reports from board members and superintendent. Would anybody like to go first? Anybody have anything they want to report out on? Go ahead, Dennis.
So Dr. Baker, Janet and I had the bond meeting last week, getting ready for the September 16th board meeting. That's all I had.
Maria, Cecilia, Lisa, do you have anything? Yes, no? You can shake your head if you don't. Okay. And I think that's all I have to report on too, is the bond team meeting. Dr. Baker?
No, I was there also, so that was the same thing.
Okay. So let's see, we have no information items, correspondence. We've heard from just a few parents regarding distance learning and a couple of hiccups along the way, but.
And we also got some really nice emails, I have to say, that were really great to get. And, you know, a couple of them were from parents who had struggled with the crisis learning we had in the spring and were really concerned about how it might roll out, and they felt really good about how it rolled out. So I think that was nice to also hear some of the good stuff. So feel free to send us good stuff as well as problems.
I will second that, Elisa. It's just a breath of fresh air when we get a nice positive email. Okay, if that's it for correspondence, other business suggested items for the future agenda. I know I took down lunch distribution, CARES money, and enrollment update. Is there anything else? No? Okay, we'll move right along then. Changes to the board agenda. I don't think we have any. Just a reminder that we did add the September 16th special meeting for the bond update.
And then we also added that special session on the 30th. It's on here tonight. That's because of what we need to submit to the state as not the LCAP, but what are the acronyms again, Liz? Else?
It's still the LCAP, but it's different words. It's the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan, but they call it the LCP, but it's still the same letters, right?
I like that they named it to confuse everybody, and then they just changed it to LCP instead of LCAP. Yes.
Very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the agenda. So if we have a motion to adjourn, we'll see everybody back on September 9th.
So could we close this meeting in honor of all district employees and the fabulous job they've done for the last 6 months and will continue to do?
That sounds great.
Wonderful.
So Dennis, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, please.
Adjourn? Okay. Dennis, second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, give me a thumbs
Aye.
up. Aye. Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.